Namaste, it's Renee, and welcome to my podcast, Peace, Love, Abundance. This podcast is a place where I share my journeys, teachings, and lessons I have learned from being a well-known yoga and Ayurveda instructor, a master herbalist, and a holistic esthetician for over 15 years now. And I am also now licensed in both Colorado and Hawaii. I like to sum it all up into calling it daily self-care. With the rising cost of healthcare, we are hitting an apex where we all need to know more and take better care of ourselves daily. And there's no excuse not to take better care of ourselves daily. There is a plethora of info at our fingertips, and we know so much more about the human body than we ever have. My goal is to inspire, promote, and shed light where light is needed. Through movement as medicine, also known as yoga or any kind of exercise really, just get your butt out there. Plus, taking care of ourselves from the inside out as well as the outside in, there is a lot we can do to achieve daily self-care. Appreciate yourself for listening today and taking the time to learn more. I appreciate feedback. Please rate my podcast and share with anyone else who would benefit from listening. And it is with peace, love, abundance that I deliver today's episode. Aloha! I am so excited to bring you this podcast. I got the opportunity to interview Kaila June. Kaila June and I worked together at Lifetime Fitness in Colorado. From second one, I just adored her and everything that she said and contributes to this world. And our worlds kind of collided. While we have very similar ideals, we have very different backgrounds, yet we come together and complement each other in many ways. So I'm really excited for you to meet her and listen to her and everything she has to say. Kaila June is a Registered Somatic Movement Educator, certified Corrective Exercise Specialist, and a dance artist. She is motivated by embodied movement science as a platform for contemporary movement education. With over 20 years as a movement teacher, her approach builds bridges between movement modalities and merges somatic movement and kinesiology into a comprehensive framework. And that just explains her in a nutshell. That is just her bio. So let's let Kaila explain to us what she does, how she finds peace, love, and abundance. And hopefully you fall in love with her as well. I find her absolutely amazing. And you can also work with her one-on-one. She has training, courses. So you as a movement teacher, you can learn more as well. Anyway, she explains a lot of that in the interview. So if you fall into this category of movement, or maybe your body needs some movement to heal and restore, because let's face it, that's pretty much all of us, right? Even if you don't work in this field, your body needs movement to heal. So stay with us. Without further ado, here we go. All right. Welcome. Welcome, Kaila. Thank you for joining us today on my podcast. And would you please let us know a little bit more about you and what you do?
You know what, Renee, it's great, first of all, to be here with you. It's been, I think that we're going on over a decade now of knowing each other. So that's pretty exciting. My name is Kaila June, and I am a passionate movement educator, pioneer, guide. That's really what I've been doing now my, entire life. And I love the opportunity to be able to talk with others about movement education, the power of using movement as medicine, how this can be really applicable into our everyday. And then also, I've got a vision for a movement education field that looks a little bit different than what we've kind of, settled on in the current state of things. So those are a few of the ways in which I'm really excited about movement. Movement as medicine, movement as a kind of visionary education field, and how we can bring movement into our lives so that we can feel better in the day in and day out.
Right. And Kaila, I know that you have a long history in movement and physical. You yourself were a dancer back in the day, and that's somewhat your story even brought you to this point. Can you explain a little bit of that?
So still a dancer, maybe not performing and making dances in the moment as much as I'd like to, but certainly will never stop that process, hopefully. But yeah, my first movement teacher was my mom. So I grew up in my mom's dance studio. And, she had a dance studio since I started walking. And that experience was, really profound for me because it was the family business. And I began, helping her in the studio and with classes when I was 6, 7, 8, right? With small children. And then by the time I was a preteen, I was teaching my own classes. And then by the time I was an older teenager, I was teaching half of the kind of curriculum in the studio, helping her with recitals and production and choreography and costume design and all of those things that go along with making dances. My mom was very interested in creative process and giving each of us an opportunity to really express ourselves. And we performed a lot in a lot of different locations.
Right.
So, yeah, powerful.
And wasn't there an injury that really made you start to think about how you got to this point with movement and restoring the body and such? I believe there was an injury of your own that made you start to really think about things.
I would say that the first injury was the one that my mom had. So when I was about 10 years old, she had a serious back injury that led to a surgery. And she, for years after that, taught on a mattress in the studio.
Wow.
So it was a really big deal and something she eventually recovered from, but it took quite a while. So that, was a big experience for me, not only in terms of who I was as a dancer, but obviously also this is my mom. So this impacted every aspect of our life. And then when, I ended up going to the University of Montana and was in the dance and choreography program there for my BFA. And, a couple of years in, I had a serious low back injury. And there was a lot of fear inside of that because of what I had experienced with my mom. And I also saw that I wasn't the only one in my early 20s with a devastating injury. It was in the dancers all around me and in all of the dance teachers and mentors that I had. They all had injury histories. And this really, it changed people's lives. I mean, dancers, I knew their lives were kind of different for the whole of it because of these injuries. So these were things that shaped what people actually, the kind of quality of life they were able to live. So, for me at that point, it was like, I'm not going down like that. That's not going to happen. I just knew intuitively that we have better ways to work with the body, to train the body, to guide the body, that it didn't need to look like this. And, I started asking questions that, were really about how do I continue to roll on the floor until I'm 80?
Right.
How does that process keep going? Yeah.
Right. And that's when I really started to connect with you, is when we were both working at Lifetime Fitness and we got into a similar conversation of this and the rolling around on the floor. And we would go up into the yoga studio. And one time, I think we only got to play with it one time together, even though I know you spend a lot of time in that yoga studio rolling around. But yeah, actually seeing what you meant by rolling around and using those basic movements that even from the development of an infant, how they learn to sit upright and then they come back down on their belly and everything. And yeah, immediately I was intrigued with your knowledge and your ideas of how to restore the body. And even from that point, I still mention in my own yoga classes how important it is to develop our spine, because at birth we had to develop that secondary curve in our spine. And by being on the floor is one way to keep it healthy or restore it if people are having spinal issues.
Yeah. Yeah, that was really the first part of the puzzle for me, Renee, was somatic movement education, which is where this developmental kind of movement patterning comes from, and the work with the floor. And there's, a whole handful of somatic pioneers that we have at this point to, help us along that journey. So, a couple of really familiar ones probably to listeners that you have would be Feldenkrais, and then there's Alexander, and, we've got Body Baybridge Cohen and Bartinieff and Emily Conrad with Continuum. So we're really fortunate to have a lot of somatic visionaries. And when I was introduced to somatic movement, again, it was at the University of Montana. That was my first drop in. And it was, right away when I enrolled there. And, just to say, as soon as I, it probably was about 17. I'm like, ballet shoes are gone. I'm barefoot, no more point shoes. Like, I started learning contemporary dance and improvisation and contact improv and being on the floor. And I was sold into a whole nother, part of movement that I didn't have as a child. And somatic movement was part of that. And what somatic movement does really, really well is helps us to repattern those kind of behaviors or actions that are causing tissue trauma, inflammation, pain, that are really promoting injury. And they're all that stuff that kind of exists under the hood, right? Subconscious. And it accesses that in a safe and effective way and helps us kind of restore inner support. We learn to move with more ease and efficiency, and we feel better. Really, an incredible, I would say it is the foundation for using movement as medicine, is somatic inquiry.
And using all the muscle groups we have to get up off the floor. Thank goodness for even traditional physical therapy. Any physical therapy is much needed, but rather than isolating muscle groups or just a joint that needs physical therapy, you're using the entire body to move around and get up off the floor or get onto the floor and roll around, right?
Yeah, so we're really looking at, a conversation of the body in its wholeness and integration, right? So this idea of interdependence, that the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. And, what we know now about, kind of current, fascial research and this, new science of biotensegrity that is being offered now, which is basically a model of wholeness and looking at the biomechanics of the living form, these ways in which we've been working in whole body movements, support from the inside out. We're now seeing that the science is catching up and saying, oh yeah. And in fact, this is the way to keep, optimal tissue health. And oh yeah, this is the way to really help your nervous system stay regulated and to keep that kind of, rhythm between the various systems. And that's an exciting time in movement education as the science catches up with what we've kind of known, right? Those of us that are moving, like, we know this.
So even the inside out even implies what we're putting into our body, like food and nutrition. Mm-hmm. Even. Yeah, the whole picture. And I've heard in some of your other videos, you use the term even client-centered care. So taking the client's life and lifestyle and their individual body into consideration and coming up with client-centered care rather than universal, that this will work for everybody, I'm assuming is kind of what that means.
Yeah, it really comes down to this kind of this orientation that we have in Western medicine, which I know you understand. And I think most people do at this point, which is often kind of having the quick fix, having the Band-Aid put on something, instead of really looking at kind of the multiple layers that are kind of contributing to why this thing is manifesting to begin with, right? And so that client-centered approach is really saying, hey, the client or the individual is actually the expert in their own life. Right. So if we look at kind of the somatic inquiry, one thing about the somatic work is that it's the birthright or legacy of every single one of us. We all have a soma. And a soma is literally the knowing of the self. It's the personal consciousness. It's the story we tell ourselves all the time. It's the feelings and the experiences that I have about who I am in the world, right? So if I'm working with somebody and helping them to move or feel better in whatever way that they want to, my my, orientation is you're the expert in your life. I'm going to listen and allow you to guide me. I might be the movement expert here, and I've got a lot of different ways and ideas of how I can help you, but inevitably you're going to guide what choices I might bring forward to help you. You're a part of this, and your desire to do, your willingness to be here and take responsibility and be a leader of your own life is actually what is going to help you heal or find that wholeness that you desire.
That was beautifully said. And it's very similar to Ayurveda, how I work with Ayurveda, that Ayurveda is kind of that same way, that you just need to listen to your body. You know yourself better than you give yourself credit for. With Ayurveda, it's up to the individual to truly take care of themselves. Ayurvedically, I'm the person who's going to guide them and maybe point things out to them and help them along the way. But in the end, they have to make it happen. They have to feel it in their body, and they have to continue to stay on top of it. It's, that self-care. But what you're saying is very similar to Ayurveda.
Yeah, and I think that we see this in, traditional or long-standing systems of health and wellness, right? And in fact, the somatic pioneers, those individuals who have really brought somatic work forward, they were heavily, all of them, influenced by, Eastern teachings and methodologies, martial arts, yoga, Ayurveda, Chinese medicine, all of these different kind of, traditional whole perspective systems, right? And what's really interesting too about the somatic pioneers is that all of them had a problem that nobody else could fix. There was something in their lives that was going on, that nobody else could help them with. And they went on a journey, a self-research journey, to figure out how to overcome the thing. And they found it by working from the soma out.
Wow.
Powerful.
Totally. I love it. It's very much how I think. No wonder you and I 10 years ago, that first conversation. Yep. We connected. Definitely. Oh, in every podcast, let's not forget to do this. Every podcast interview I do, I ask everybody what brings you peace, love, and abundance. So, and if you can, an answer for each one of those, or maybe somehow it all wraps into those three.
I think it's the same thing for me, Renee. I have one answer coming forward. And, the first thing that comes for me is connection. Then I go, okay, what's kind of the primary place of connection? And then I think, it's an experience of connection, because it's when we have the experience that we can actually be present with either peace, love, or abundance, right? I'm like, okay, well, how does that experience of connection, how can I find it? So for example, over the past couple of days, I've kind of been in a foggy mental, like just kind of stormy mind, right? All those things. And I'm like, okay, it's my choice to come into a place of peace, love, and abundance. And it's the breath.
Yeah.
It's the breath, right? That breath brings me into primary connection with myself, my soma. The experience of me brings me into presence so that I can create new pathways or opportunities in the moment. So if I'm feeling or kind of being here in this cloudy place, when I come into the breath, I can begin to choose and cultivate peace, right? Which is for me an experience of calm and ease in the body. Love, which comes from connection and relating to other things. I can't relate to other things well unless I'm centered.
Right.
So it's from that, then I can say, now I can begin practicing kindness out in the world. Resonance, receptivity, right? And then abundance is that same thing. I don't feel like I deserve abundance if I'm in a dark and stormy kind of shadowy place. Instead, I've got resistance against receiving, right? And so then with the breath, finding presence, sense of peace and ease, beginning to relate through connection and love, then I can begin to receive. And then abundance will come.
Wow. See, I should have you be the person to describe even because I use the peace, love, abundance to tag everything. And you just described it better than anybody. Thank you. And I love the breath thing. Living down here in Hawaii, it's very interesting because they are big on breath down here. So it's not just a yoga thing or an Ayurveda thing or a soma thing, or, I mean, it's everywhere. I think culture, even when you dig deep, every culture knows how important it is and what we get from it. And the islands down here, like there's the term haole, which haole means that I'm a foreigner here. I'm a haole because I wasn't born on the islands and I'm not Hawaiian. And haole means of no breath. Mm-hmm. So it just means that when I was born, I didn't take my first breath on the island. And I get chills even when I think about it. And I completely honor that and respect that no, I didn't take my first breath on this island. I took my first breath in Colorado, which when I'm in Colorado, I'm very protective of Colorado because I did take that first breath in Colorado. I am a true Coloradan or native when I'm in Colorado. So yeah, I completely respect the Hawaiians down here that they're absolutely right. I have no breath of the island. I didn't take my first breath here. However, in the present moment, I definitely do know how important it is for me to have my breath. And the way you described that was absolutely even beautiful, how important it is to have the breath. And down here in Hawaii, when the Hawaiians meet each other, when the locals meet each other, they walk up to each other and they go forehead to forehead with each other and they actually exhale and then inhale each other's breath. Because the breath is how they even share their peace, love, and abundance down here.
So Miley is Hawaiian.
Oh, yeah, that's right. She is.
Yeah, her dad's from the Big Island. And that moment of it was, this is kind of a personal, vulnerable story, but the first time we had that exchange was where that kind of deep connection and relationship started. Super powerful.
Right. Yeah. And that's,
we don't contact one another that way here in this mainland of the States, right? That's not a way in which we greet and come into each other. And this sacredness, like for her, the head and the connection with the head and touch of the head's very sacred,
Yeah. And it just, to think that a word like howling, when it's used in movies or I don't know the way it's sometimes used, you would think that it's kind of a horrible word, but whenever you learn the definition of it, it actually gives, as a yoga instructor and an Ayurveda instructor, I get the chills thinking about, because it's all about the breath. I get it. I totally get it. And I honor it in the way we perceive things in life. There's always another side of the story. And then once you learn that side of the story, you're like, this is amazing. Mm-hmm. So yeah, anyways, side note, but I kind of liked that whole little conversation.
No, it's really, and what's kind of I'm being left with right now is what that does in terms of allowing you. So since you're there, to be able, like the respect then, like coming in with kind of a respect and like, I have an honor to be here and I'm invited to be here.
Right.
And there's a way in which we can enter, another place with respect and the care of those that have come from there. Right. And that's super important.
And these islands are so magical and sacred that now I find the beauty in it that they're so into the breath here and everything. It's amazing. The energy is so good. All right. So Kaila, why don't you tell us a little bit about the business that you've built and your school and your training?
Okay, yay. This was a big transition in my life, which was January of 2018. I brought all of the work that I'd been doing in movement live, up to that point, been, one-on-one client practice, classes, workshops, things like that, but all in person. And I brought it all into virtual space online. And I had wanted to do that for a while, for maybe 4 or 5 years previous. And I kind of started putting together little bits and pieces. As you know, Renee, there's a lot of pieces and moving parts, right? To even doing something simply online, there's a huge amount of learning. Yeah, brought the work that I'm doing online and in kind of a big way. So, kind of coming back to this movement education model, considering that I've had the opportunity, grew up as a dancer, grew up in the movement arts, kind of more the experiential place of movement, where we might be more discovery based and qualitative and it's expressive and that kind of thing. And then, over time, my questions led me to the other side, which is, exercise science and personal training. And here it's more goal oriented and it's evidence based and there's a whole kind of different set of tools. I really like them both and I see the value in both. What I've recognized over 20 years of working, in movement is that these two worlds don't talk.
Right.
They don't hang out together. And so the kind of signature program of the Soma Kine School is about embodied movement science. And it's really bringing those two lenses together. So this inside out perspective of the somatic inquiry and practice and patterning, and also the kind of more objective outside in movement analysis and kind of what we know from kinesiology and those more traditional movement sciences. It's a year-long program and it's for teachers of all kinds. So yoga teachers, we've got yoga, dance, fitness, gyrotonic. We've got some manual therapists, massage therapists, Pilates. We're all there. We're all having a conversation about using embodied movement science to help encourage wholeness in the lives of our clients and students. So that's been really exciting work, and it's different than what's kind of, the mainstream. So it's also been challenging, right, to bring a kind of such a new conversation to the table. However, I do want to say this, Renee, over a year and a half of working with that program, I've had the opportunity to talk with movement teachers from all over the planet that have come from all different backgrounds. And I've literally spent a full hour on the phone with over 100 movement teachers. And it's inspiring because what we're talking about now and this kind of merging of the movement sciences and somatic inquiry and encouraging wholeness, all these things, it's happening everywhere.
Yeah.
The collective consciousness is on fire with these questions and with this direction.
Yeah. There's definitely a shift going on. I can feel it as well with people aware of their bodies, in practitioners as well as like instructors or influencers or leaders or guides, whatever you want to call coaches. These days, there's a lot of terminology out there to describe some of us are doing in the business of it, as well as, again, the people, the students seeking the relief in their body, finding a better way.
And most movement teachers, if they want to kind of gain the skills formally to work with a client one-on-one using movement, they might go personal training because it's one-on-one focus. They might go yoga therapy because it's one-on-one focus, or they might choose some kind of a coaching or specific, like with, Ayurveda, there's working one-on-one. So that's, a particular kind of wellness approach. Certain somatic schools like Clinical Somatics is focused one-on-one. So there are these various ways, right, that movement teachers and wellness practitioners, seek out in terms of how do I work really skillfully one-on-one. And so what Intelligent Motion Training does, this year-long program, is it's looking at that skill set, but from a holistic perspective. So it's an integrated movement design.
Nice.
Right. So whatever you might bring to the table, you might use yoga and you might use, kind of like some strength training. Well, how do you bring those parts and pieces together to work one-on-one or to work with students? So it's really adaptable to the needs of each teacher, because really what we're here to do is help those people that are in front of us, right? It's not about us at the end of the day. It's about people that are coming to us wanting to use movement to feel better because it's non-invasive, self-correcting, super safe, very effective. No, the other thing that I just started, Renee, and I'm not sure that we talked about this, is I've gotten so many emails over the past year and a half about somatic movement. And somatic practice that I, have created called Somatic Groundwork that I shared with you, that story you had. And so I've started what's called the Somatic Groundwork Virtual Classroom, and it's a membership. And this gives people the opportunity to practice somatics in their home and to do it also in a community environment. So I've got that going, and there are movement teachers involved with that, but there's also, just general body-mind explorers who are saying, hey, I want to know more about somatic movement. I want to know how to apply this into my life, and I want to practice it. And I don't really have anybody in my area to do that with. And so that's been really exciting. That's been going about 2.5 months now. So that's a new community. And then I still work one-on-one, virtually and live here in Boise. So I've been trying to put out a lot of free content for people to move with me, learn about how I'm thinking and, guiding movement. So I have some videos on YouTube. I have some videos on Vimeo. They're not the same ones. And then I do quite a bit of Facebook Lives on my business page, the Soma Kine School.
But from what I know of you, those are just the tip of the iceberg. to actually work with you and speak with you is amazing and definitely a necessity in this world. I'm very thankful, Kaila, for what you're doing, the message you're spreading. You're awesome.
You're awesome too, Renee.
Right. Awesome sauce. So how can they get a hold of you? I will also put it in the show notes.
So my primary website is www.kailajune.com, KAILAJUNE. So that's my name, kailajune.com. And then on Facebook, the Soma Kine School. And I'm on there really regularly. So, and from either of those locations, if you have questions for me or want to look at, working with somebody in movement for your own personal development, or you're interested in some of the, virtual programs that I have, you can contact me through either of those places.
Right. And you have the school for professionals, and professionals, you mentioned even like yoga teachers, massage therapists, physical trainers, available for any of those, as well as you still work one-on-one with clients and students of any type, of somebody just looking for relief from their physical daily ouchies or boo-boos.
Here's what I think about is that we're all subject, no matter if you're active, athletic, or sedentary, right? We're all subject to what I call the contemporary body-mind challenges. So that's repetitive injury, chronic stress and pain, movement restrictions, and general disease, right? These are things that we're all kind of working with or looking to, find recovery from. So that's what I help people do.
Nice.
Overcome those and move and feel better.
Well, this has been definitely awesome. And maybe even someday another podcast together, because I think the two of us could definitely keep going down this rabbit hole just a little bit more even. But for now, do you have any last minute thoughts or advice for the listeners in our community?
I think one of the most profound things that occurs for my clients when we begin working is what really helps somebody come out of pain and start to have more ease and peace in their life, have more mental clarity, is the simple thing, right? The taking an opportunity to lay on the floor and breathe and connect with the space 5 to 15 minutes, right? You come up out of the floor and you're better. You might not be 100% for maybe where you'd like to be, but you're able to then choose the next best thing. So it's this place of being. Practicing more beingness is something that I really like to inspire or encourage people to do. And to remember that beingness is it's not lazy, apathetic quality. It's active. Being is active. It's actively being in presence.
Yes. Very well said. Definitely. All right, Kaila. Well, we will wrap this up. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks for having me, Renee.
And thank you to all the listeners who joined in today. I leave you with peace, love, abundance, and namaste. Okay, real quick, I want to share with you my new book that I just released. The name of it is Super Ingredients for Whole Body Holistic Skincare Recipe Book. Become a badass at whole body self-care with the use of super ingredients like honey, papaya, whole flowers, and herbs, the way Mother Nature intended. It's written by me, Renee Stahl. I am a licensed holistic esthetician, yoga and Ayurveda instructor, as well as a master herbalist. As a professional in the self-care world, I share my knowledge, my methods, secrets, and just basically how to take care of the largest organ of your body, also known as your skin, topically, in this 28-page beautifully illustrated ebook. And as a listener of my podcast, use this code to get 50% off when purchasing the book in my store online in my website, reneestahl.online. The coupon code you need is BADASS. Basically, just put in when you're presented with a coupon, enter the word BADASS, all one word, BADASS, no capitals, don't worry about anything like that, just regular old badass. This will help you become a badass at whole body skincare.